Chapter 1, Unit 3, Arranging a Trip. Section B2. Now listen to the dialogue.
Hello, Monica. How are you?
I'm fine, thanks. How are you, Ken?
I'm fine too. How can I help you, Monica?
I want to fly to Singapore on the 20th of November.
There are 2 flights on the 20th. One leaves at 10 in the morning, the other at 1 in the afternoon.
Well, what time does the 10 o'clock one arrive in Singapore?
At about 11:30.
Oh, that's fine. What time should I check in at the airport?
About 1 hour before the flight.
That's perfect. Not too early.
Right, that's booked. How about your return flight?
I'm not coming straight back from Singapore. I'm travelling on to Kuala Lumpur.
Oh, right. Would you like me to check the connecting flights from Kuala Lumpur to Phnom Penh?
No, thanks. I'm staying in Singapore for 4 or 5 days, and then I want to travel to Kuala Lumpur by train.
Oh, that'll be nice. And then you'll be flying back from Kuala Lumpur?
No, I'm travelling to Thailand from Malaysia and flying back from Bangkok. That will be on the 12th of December.
Oh, I see.
Is there an early morning flight on the 12th?
Let me see. Yes, there's one at 8:30. It arrives at Phnom Penh at about 10. Can I book it for you?
Yes, please. That's fine. When will the tickets be ready?
By tomorrow. I'll send them round to you.
Oh, thank you very much.
How about your journey from Kuala Lumpur to Bangkok? Do you want me to check the flights for that?
No, thanks. I'm planning to travel by bus.
It's a long journey. Why don't you go by train?
Because I want to go to Phuket first.
Oh, I see. Why have you chosen that particular place?
Oh, it's very attractive and has lovely beaches.
It sounds nice. And how about your journey from there to Bangkok?
I'll be travelling by bus again. That way I'll see a lot of Thai countryside.
Yes, it's an excellent idea. By the way, is your trip holiday or work?
Singapore and Kuala Lumpur are work. The rest is holiday.
So you are lucky. You don't have to pay for your tour yourself.
That's right. The universities in Singapore and Malaysia are paying for me to go to Singapore and Kuala Lumpur. It's part of their aid to our university here.
I wish someone would aid me. Even a small gift would be nice.
You'll just have to find a rich husband, Can. Then you'll be all right. Just joking, Can.
Chapter 2, Unit 1, Community Development. Section A2. Now listen to the story and dialogue.
Mark works in Cambodia, but now he's on holiday in England. He's talking with his friend Diana.
How's your work going, Mark?
Very well, thanks, Diana.
Do you work with farmers most of the time?
Well, that's the intention.
What exactly do you do with them?
Well, the main aim of our community development project is to help farmers grow better and more crops. For example, we help farmers manage their water supply.
What is their main crop?
Rice.
Rice needs a lot of water, doesn't it? Is there enough?
Well, during the rainy season there's often too much, but during the dry season there's often not enough.
What can the farmers do when the earth is too dry?
They can get pumps, but they cost about $200 each. Threshing machines are also very expensive, so the whole community must join together to buy these things.
So do the farmers have to share them?
Yes, the farmers within each community must work together, but to do that they have to trust each other. That's what community development is all about.
Although farmers can pump water into their fields during the dry season, how can they pump it out during a flood?
No, they can't, and it's a problem. The only way floods can be controlled is by reclaiming the forests.
How's that?
Well, the trees in the forest hold the earth down when it rains. When they're cut down, the earth is washed away into the rivers. When that happens, the riverbeds slowly begin to rise, and that's what causes the floods.
I see. Do you think the farmers really can make a difference to their lives if they work together then?
Oh yes, and they must do so, because otherwise they won't be able to grow better and more crops.
Chapter 3, Unit 1, Claire calls Cambodia. Section A3. Now listen to the story.
When Claire Brown won first prize in a poetry competition, the first thing she did was phone Kath. Because it's so expensive, she doesn't usually phone abroad, but this time she made an exception. She looked up the code for Cambodia, wrote it down, and dialed Kath's number. Kath was at CCE, the Cambodian Centre for English, when the phone rang. She picked it up and heard Claire Brown's voice. From the expression on her face, the other teachers knew she must have received some good news. "Congratulations, Claire," she suddenly said. "What did you win?" The teachers' room went quiet. When Kath shouted, $10,000! All the teachers stopped working and looked at each other. "And guess what I'm going to do with it?" asked Claire Brown. "You don't know? Well, I'll tell you. I'm going to visit you in Cambodia." "Oh, that's simply wonderful, Kath. So, if I come when you're on holiday, you'll be able to show me around." "What a pleasure, dear. I'm really delighted." "What did you say? You're on holiday next month? Oh, then I'll have to be quick." "Have you already booked your flight?" Kath asked Claire Brown. "Unless you make a booking soon, you might not be able to get a flight." "Well, I suggest you travel here directly and don't stop over in Bangkok. Unless you have friends there, of course." "Right. I'll wait for you to phone me back tomorrow at the same time. Goodbye, Claire, and thanks for phoning." Chapter 3, Unit 2. Claire calls again. Section A2. Now listen to the story and dialogue.
The next day, Kath was working in the teacher's room at CCE when the phone rang.
Hello, Claire. How have you got on?
Well, I've booked my ticket for the beginning of next month.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Yes, I can't wait. It's going to be the holiday of a lifetime.
I'm sure you're right, Claire, but I wouldn't have too many expectations unless you don't mind being disappointed.
Well, only this morning I was thinking, if I knew something about Cambodia, I'd appreciate it more. So off I went to the library to look up books on Cambodia.
What a good idea.
Yes, but do you know how bad my spelling is? I spent hours looking up books about Cambodia under K. But then a nice woman said, could I make a suggestion? Try looking up books on Cambodia under C. So I did, and the result was immediate. I found 2 or 3 books on Cambodia.
Have you begun any of them yet?
Yes, I started a history book about Cambodia last night. If there was a good bookshop near me, I'd buy it. It's so interesting.
Chapter 4, Unit 3, Sharing Skills. Section B3. Now listen to the dialogue.
Good morning, Andrew. So, you're thinking about working in advertising again? Did you bring along some of your work?
Yes, here it is.
It looks really good. Where did you do this?
In England. Is advertising very different here?
From a technical point of view, it's more or less the same, but an advertisement that works in England mightn't necessarily work here.
Oh, really? Why's that?
Well, some aspects of advertising are international, like the need for medical products or more generally fashion. But if we want to make sure that consumers here relate to an advertisement, we must also consider their particular society and culture.
Yes, I see. So are all your employees Cambodians?
Oh, no. We also need people like you to join us.
Why's that?
Well, hopefully, we will be working with more Cambodians in the future. Currently, however, there's a limit to the technical skills that Cambodians can reasonably be expected to bring with them.
So do you consider training an important part of the job here?
Personally, I think it's any employer's responsibility.
I think it makes the job a lot more interesting.
Why's that?
Well, I'll be sharing my skills with Cambodians, and they'll be sharing their knowledge and experience of Cambodia society and culture with me.
Exactly, Andrew. Welcome to the Cambodian Advertising Company.
Chapter 5, Unit 1. Don't get lost in the forest. Section A2. Now listen to the story and dialogue.
Dari has always wanted to go to Kirirom, but didn't have the chance till her English teacher arranged a trip for her class at school. Before she went, her mother gave her some advice.
What time's the bus picking you up tomorrow, Dari?
6 o'clock, Mum.
Well, if you don't get up earlier than you usually do, you may miss it, dear.
I know, Mum. Could you wake me up at 5 o'clock?
Of course. Now listen, dear. When you're at Kirirom, don't go off on your own. If you do, you may find yourself in danger.
What kind of danger, Mum?
Kirirom's covered with forest. Even people who are familiar with that area can easily get lost there, and without growing any great distance either.
Well, aren't there any maps?
I have my doubts. The forest routes are always changing, so would a map be useful?
I see. Well, don't worry, Mum. I won't go into the forest, even with my friends, unless our teacher allows us to.
Well, just be careful, dear, and have a nice time.
Thanks, Mum. Good night.
Good night, dear.
Chapter 6, Unit 1. A View on Education. Section B2. Now listen to the story and dialogue.
Mr. Mike Taylor, an English teacher working in Phnom Penh, is answering questions about education.
Mike, you've been working in education for a long time. How important is education, do you think?
I think it's very important,
Why?
because if it's given top priority, we may begin to see the kind of effective educational system that is essential for real development.
So why isn't it always given enough importance?
Because it takes a lot of time, effort, and money.
Well, is it really necessary then?
It's just not possible to have development in the political, scientific, and cultural fields without well-educated people, and that requires education of a high standard.
What do you mean by well-educated people?
I mean people who are responsible, who understand their culture and traditions, who care about the whole of society, and who want to and can improve it.
But even if well-educated people want to improve their society, they may not get the opportunity.
Perhaps it depends on how many there are.
What particular improvements in education would you like to see?
I'd like to see teachers concentrate more on their students and allow them to participate more. If they do that, we may begin to see some real progress.
Thank you very much, Mike, for sharing your views.
Chapter 6, Unit 3. Schools in England and Cambodia. Section B2. Now listen to the story and dialogue.
Last week, while Monica was visiting Samrong, Kim Seng asked his cousin about the educational system in England.
I don't know either when students in England go to school, or how long they go to school for.
Well, they start school when they're 5 years old and finish when they're about 16.
So they go to school for about 11 years?
Yes, but a considerable proportion remain at school for another 2 years. Then, if they do well and want to, they may go on to university.
How about the school day? Is it long?
About 6 hours. Classes start about 9 o'clock and finish around 4 o'clock in the afternoon.
How about the teaching? What's it like?
Well, teachers want their students to work hard, but they also think they should enjoy their classes.
So are their classes interesting?
I think so. Teachers organise their students so that they participate a lot in class. Science teachers set up experiments for their students to carry out either by themselves or with their classmates.
It sounds lively. How about after school?
Well, there are many activities for students to enjoy, like sport, music and computers. But then there's homework, which they must do every evening.
So students have a very busy life.
Well, it's certainly not boring, but it's really up to them. They can either do a lot or a little.
And how much do students have to pay?
Nothing. They're really lucky, aren't they?
Chapter 7, Unit 1, The Beach. Section B3. Now listen to the dialogue.
I'm going away next week, Mary.
Oh, really? For work or leisure?
Leisure. We're going to either Kampong Som or Cape. We haven't decided yet.
They're both nice, especially the islands off the coast. They're so quiet and peaceful.
Where did you and Ted go last month?
Thailand.
Really? What was it like?
We went to 2 places. The first was in the south. Perfect sunbathing, swimming and windsurfing, but too noisy for us.
Too many people?
Yes, and lots of hotels right on the beach. Neither Ted nor I like that.
At the beach, I like to see trees, not buildings.
Me too. Then some people held a lively party on our particular beach with a big band which played really loud music. Plus there were lots of fireworks and Ted just can't tolerate either loud music or fireworks. So we left for Koh Samed, where it's nice and quiet.
Chapter 7, Unit 3, Work and Leisure.
You are going to hear about what Pauline, Ian and Kath like doing in their leisure time.
Section B1, listen to Pauline.
I'm the manager of CCE, the Cambodian Centre for English in Phnom Penh. I've been working there for nearly 5 years. Running a large language school is hard work, so I don't have much free time. But sometimes I do need to get away from work and do something different. Recently, I joined a local theatre group. I'm not an actress, I just help with stage and lights. Usually, however, I'm happy to just stay at home and listen to music. I mustn't do too much after work. Rest is important for health. I like classical music, particularly opera. I used to go to the opera a lot when I lived in London. I really miss that now. The only other thing I miss is milk. Of course, you can get it here, but it's not the same as English milk.
Section C1. Listen to Ian.
Free time? I work as a nurse in our local hospital, so I can tell you, I don't get much. Wish I did, because I like a lot of things. Eating, cooking, running, gardening, music, classical of course, to name but a few. When I'm free in the evenings, I chat with friends at the local pub. Last week I told them about my son, Peter. He's a bright boy, just returned from a holiday in France. I say holiday, but he spent most of his time picking grapes. Partly to earn money, partly because he likes it. Well, that's what he said. It's lovely working under a sunny blue sky, he said. Can you imagine? Such boring work. But when I tell him he mustn't spend his free time working, he just smiles.
Section D1, listen to Kath.
I teach English at CCE. I've always been interested in languages and now I'm learning Khmer. I like traveling and hope to visit Vietnam next year. I swim every day at lunchtime and play tennis with my friend, Monica, after work in the evening. At first, I wasn't very good at it, but Monica taught me how to hit the ball properly. In the evenings, I sometimes go to the French cinema. They have very good films there. Before going to bed, I read books of all kinds. At the moment, I'm reading a novel that Monica lent me. I mustn't forget to give it back to her.
Chapter 10, Unit 2, Khao Ni Sai. Section B3. Listen to the dialogue.
Nisai, how did you become a member of the Cambodian national football team?
When I was 16, the Cambodian army put an advertisement in the newspaper. They were looking for good football players. I applied and was selected.
Well, they must have liked your style. So how did you get on?
I did quite well, because after a year, I was selected for the Army's first team. Then, while I was playing for that team, I was selected as the best under-19 football player. That's how I joined the national football team.
How did you manage to make such quick progress?
Well, I train hard for about 4 hours every day. More when there's an important match coming up.
Yes, that's a lot.
Well, those are our regulations, of course, but training hard has definitely helped me to become a better player.
How about injuries? I hope you haven't ever been seriously wounded.
I've received a few injuries and sprains, but that's only to be expected. But I've never had what you might call a serious wound.
As a member of the national football team, you must have competed against a number of foreign countries.
Yes, I've played against other Asian countries, including Vietnam, Hong Kong, and Indonesia.
So you must be a superstar by now.
Oh, no. And really, I don't want to be one either.
Why not?
People might stare at me, and I wouldn't like that. I just want to be a successful football player.
Chapter 11, Unit 1, The National Symbol. Section A2. Now listen to the conversation.
Who can tell me what Cambodia's flag looks like?
It's red and blue, with a picture in the middle.
Yes, Bora. But what's the picture of?
Isn't it Angkor Wat?
Yes, that's right. But Angkor Wat's an historical building. Why is it currently on our flag?
Well, though Angkor Wat was built more than 800 years ago, it's still our national symbol.
So, why was Angkor Wat built?
Nobody really knows why it was built, but we know that Suryavarman II, who was a Khmer king in the 12th century, ordered its construction. King Suryavarman II was a Hindu, and the temple has 5 towers, which match the shape of Mount Meru, a very important mountain in the Hindu religion.
But Cambodia is a Buddhist country.
Yes, most Cambodians follow Buddhism now, but before Cambodia became a Buddhist country, it had been Hindu for centuries. When Angkor Wat was built, Angkor was the Khmer capital. It remained so until the 15th century, when it was abandoned and the capital moved south to the Phnom Penh area.
What happened after Angkor was abandoned?
Before it was finally abandoned, Angkor had declined considerably. The jungle slowly invaded Angkor year by year until most of the city was covered. Angkor had been forgotten for generations before it was rediscovered in the 19th century.
Chapter 11, Unit 2, A Tour of Angkor Wat. Section A3. Listen to the story and conversation.
Mr. Kim Niak has travelled to Siem Reap, and now his friend, Mr. Van Daan, is showing him around Angkor Wat.
Part 1.
Okay, we're now at the main entrance to Angkor Wat, which is on the west side of the temple.
The west side? Isn't it more normal for temples to have their entrances on the east?
Yes, it is. It's impossible to know exactly, but experts think that the builders who created Angkor Wat arranged the building in this way to fit in with the rest of the city and also with the river which lies close to the east. Remember, when Angkor Wat was built, Angkor was already a city that covered a huge area. Let's walk along the path, across the water and up to the outside wall.
Part 2.
Now we're passing through the west gate of the temple's outside wall. From this point, you have the best view possible of the whole temple.
Wow, it really is an enormous building.
Angkor Wat is the largest and, some people say, the most beautiful example of a formal Khmer building that we know of. It's one of the largest religious constructions in the whole world.
How large is it?
Well, The outside wall measures 1 kilometre from west to east, by 800 metres from north to south. From the main entrance, across the water to the base of the towers, is a total of 570 metres, and the height of the main tower is 65 metres.
Part 3.
This is the west entrance of the inside wall. This wall is one side of a kind of hall, which goes all around the central towers. The roof is supported by columns which are made of stone, and the walls are decorated with pictures from the Ramayana.
What type of stone was used to create Angkor Wat?
Sandstone mostly, which is thought to have been cut from Phnom Kulen and brought here by river. At the time of Angkor, stone was only used to build temples. People, even kings, lived in wooden houses.
Chapter 11, Unit 3, Sophie's Dream. Section A2. Now listen to the story and dialogue. After her father's lesson about Angkor Wat, Sophie wondered what life was actually like when Angkor was at the height of its power. So she borrowed a book on the subject from a friend, and as soon as she got home, sat down under a tree to read it. While she was reading, however, she fell asleep.
Sophie, what are you doing? Wake up!
Oh, what time is it, Ratsmay?
It's after 6 o'clock, and it'll be dark soon. Why are you sleeping outside like this? Dad's worried.
Oh, I just had the most wonderful dream. Guess what it was about?
Oh, you're capable of dreaming about anything. I don't know.
Well, it was about ancient times when Angkor was a great city. I was watching a ceremony at Angkor Wat. The royal family and other important people were inside, and the temple was looking really wonderful. The whole building was painted bright red and gold.
Were you watching all this on television?
Oh, come on, Ratsmay. It was the 12th century, and televisions weren't invented until the 20th.
Weren't they? So, what did you see then?
An animal was being killed on a stage made of bricks, high up so that we could all see. It must have been a sacrifice.
A sacrifice? But Buddhists don't kill animals.
No, of course not, but Angkor Wat wasn't Buddhist then. It was first built as a Hindu temple.
But how could you know all that in your dream?
I don't know, but I did. It seemed more like reality than a dream. How do I know that this is reality?
Well, it is, Sophie. And I think we should go inside now before it gets dark. Chapter 12, Unit 2. More about Pachumben. Section A2. Now listen to the dialogue.
Was the original purpose of Pachumban to pray to the ancestors or to just remember them?
Neither. It was to offer ben to soldiers who had died while fighting for their homeland.
Did they only offer balls of rice in those days?
No, other contributions were made, like nowadays.
Must Pachumban always be held after the full moon?
Yes, because when the spirits come to receive their gifts, it must be as dark as possible. They don't like the light.
So they must find their gifts in the dark?
Yes, but they're used to it, and can easily find their way to the pagodas in the area where they used to live.
So the gifts must be left within that limited area?
Yes. People feel that any distribution made beyond that would offend the spirits, because they wouldn't know how to search for them.
That's all right for relatives who still live in their villages, but what about those who have moved away?
They must organize their holidays so that they can return.
But people can't take a holiday whenever they want.
It's no problem. Pachumben is a public holiday.
So do you stay here or go to Samrong at that time?
Either place is all right for me, but monks usually remain in their pagodas during Pachumben. As a monk, everyone is my relative, so I feel that I can celebrate Pachumben anywhere, and nobody will be offended.
Chapter 13, Unit 1, A Date at the Seaside, Part 1. Section A3. Now listen to the story.
It was a warm afternoon at the seaside in Koh Kong. In the distance, waves were crashing on some rocks. On the beach, children played happily, digging for shells in the sand or swimming in the sea. Occasionally, fishermen launched their boats and set off to catch fish. Under a big tree, Jantar stood quietly and looked out to sea. Every now and then she looked round, as if she was waiting for someone. Suddenly, 2 hands came from behind Jantar and covered her eyes. She felt them and, as she turned round, cried, "It must be you, my dear." And there, in front of her, stood a tall man. "How did you know it was me, my love?" laughed Sophies. "I knew it was you, because your hands pressed so softly," answered Jantar. "I'm used to feeling your hands, especially when you surprise me." "I hope you haven't been waiting long?" Sophies asked. "About half an hour," Jantar replied. "Someone must have delayed you. Who was it?" "Oh dear, I must have made Jantar feel jealous," Sophies thought to himself. "Oh, I'm sorry, darling, but don't worry," he replied. "You know my mother's getting old and can't carry the heavy vegetables that she sells on her stall, so before I came here I had to help her." They continued their conversation as they walked along the beach towards the children. Up in the sky the seabirds were flying. Sometimes they flew down to the water below to catch their food before flying up again and away. "Look at those children, darling," said Sophies. "They look so happy in the sea. I wonder how they can have so much confidence in the water when they're so young." Jantar smiled. "It's like the way I feel whenever you are by me," she replied. Chapter 13, Unit 3, A Mother Worries. Section A1. Now listen to the dialogue.
Where did you go this afternoon, Jantar?
To the beach, Father.
By yourself?
Yes,
You mustn't go by yourself, dear.
but I wasn't alone, Father. The beaches which I visit always have lots of people on them.
Yes, but your mother was concerned. She didn't know where you'd gone, or who you were with.
I've told her that people who worry all the time just make themselves ill. I've tried to explain to her that I'm old enough now to take care of myself.
I know, dear, but you mustn't be careless and go out without telling somebody. Why couldn't you tell your mother you were going to the beach?
Because she wasn't there. And she won't be with me when I'm in Phnom Penh either.
That's mainly why she doesn't want you to go there.
Whatever place I'm in, she's going to worry about me.
I know. That's why I told her that Mr. Kun Narit will take care of you while you're in Phnom Penh.
Is he the owner of the house where I'll be staying?
Yes, he's also the manager of an important hotel, so I think he must be a very responsible person.
That must please Mother.
Not really. Sometimes I think trying to please her is like rowing against the tide. You row and you row, but you don't seem to get anywhere. Mothers who are easygoing aren't responsible, she always says.